This is the first of what I hope to become a monthly series where I share my thoughts on some of the media I've been consuming over the course of a month. I got the idea from Karsten Rundquist, who does this with films, but I figured I'd expand it and add books and podcasts, as well as one TV show I've been watching and one album I've been particularly enjoying. As a side note about the 1 out of 10 rankings I give some of these things, my opinion often changes and evolves over time. Most of the rankings are positive, and this is because I seek out media that I've heard is great or is made by a creator I know I like. But these numbers just represent how I currently feel about the thing I am talking about. Alright, let's get started. This is my first Jacques Tati film, and I understand why so many hold him in such a high regard. First are the visuals. This movie is wonderful to look at. I love the attention paid to every detail. Tati seems to be in control of every aspect of the world, and this control culminates in one of the most visually pleasing films I've ever seen. The color palette is intentional in its use of blues, grays, and pastels. In terms of story, I love how the movie unfolds slowly in front of you. Watching Playtime feels like people watching. Playtime feels like going on safari, but instead of wild animals, the group observes the strange behavior of humans in their natural habitat. However, it's not necessarily realism that Tati is striving for, but a sort of enhanced and controlled realism, making the ignored and trivial the movie's main focus. It's intentional that one of the main story threads follows tourists because in tourism and travel, one can easily spot the idiosyncrasies of varying cultures. What this film is about to me is the facade that is so much of adult life. The restaurant/nightclub sequence is a perfect metaphor for society. It's a building and business slowly falling apart where the employee's only goal is to have the patrons not notice the cracks. Like Playtime being my introduction to Tati, Paprika is the first film I have seen by Satoshi Kon, and it is not a disappointment. I've wanted to watch this movie for a while. I saw a clip of some trippy and reality-bending animations from Paprika and knew it was a movie I had to see, though I had difficulty finding where to watch it. Considering how far technology has come, this is a very relevant movie. While we have not yet invented a machine that allows us to share dreams, we have invented apps like TikTok and Instagram that suck in their users, giving them more dopamine the longer they stay inside their clutches. We have also significantly advanced virtual reality technology. It's no surprise that people are searching for an escape, and Paprika is a movie about such escapism. As I mentioned, the method of escapism in the film is dreams. However, the writers are not coy with the parallels they are trying to make. Dreams are a metaphor in the film for things like the internet. These things offer an escape from the increasingly unsettling and unknowable reality we find ourselves in. The question this movie seems to be asking is how far these portals can take us, and if one can find true comfort in the form of an avatar or persona. Outside of the questions the narrative raises, there is also the movie's stellar visuals and great performances by the voice actors to enjoy, making Paprika a film that is definitely worth checking out. I thought Bottoms was very fun. Emma Seligman builds this satirically exaggerated world that rewards the viewer the more they pay attention to details in the background or set design choices. Most high school movies dance around the exaggerations they make, raising the stakes in unrealistic ways. However, Bottoms is more explicit about their unreality, and the filmmakers lean into it in a fun way. The design of the characters was very well crafted, making even the side characters who don't have much screen time very memorable. What held this one back for me was that some of the humor didn't quite land, and at times, the cinematography was a little uninteresting. However, for the most part, I was very engaged in the story and the characters. I highly recommend this one, and I think original movies, and especially comedies with young voices behind them, are always good movies to support. Stanley Kubrick brings a consistent quality to his work like no other, which is so impressive because of how varied his movies are. What is most striking about Barry Lyndon is the film's cinematography. The interior scenes using natural light and candlelight only gives the film a look I have never seen repeated. I haven't researched the film, so I can't say whether this is true, but it feels like Kubrick's visual inspiration for this movie came more from paintings than from any photography or cinematography that preceded it. Both interior and exterior shots are composed like works of art that one might see in the Louvre. This goes not only for the use of light, but also for the blocking and arranging of characters within each scene. However, these masterful and well-crafted shots make it all the more effective when Kubrick uses handheld and shows when a character's actions are going against the society they live in. I appreciate the story's exploration of class and social status to explore the futility of reaching for power in life. I can't say that I never felt this movie's long runtime, because I did have to watch it in multiple sittings. However, the performances and visuals make this movie worth any film fan's time. The Coen brothers have made many great films over their career. And while I did like this movie, it may be the film of theirs I felt the least connected to. However, this is not due to any one particular element. Instead of having a conventional 3-act structure, this film feels more like we are just watching the ups and downs of this man's week. In the past, I have enjoyed other movies that had a similarly loose relationship to structure. However, this one never really connected with me. I wanted Lewin to succeed, but as the movie went on, I found him to be a more and more dislikable character. The cinematography was really good, and I appreciate how they lit and staged some of these scenes. I also think that the performances were all solid. I particularly appreciated Carey Mulligan. However, when I reached the end of this movie, I didn't feel like Lewin or his world had changed much. And furthermore, I felt like no thematic or moral revelation was given to the audience. All this left me without much feeling at all towards this film. The creative act is a miraculous piece of writing. I can only compare this to a single other book I've read, probably because I'm not that well read. But the book that it reminded me of is Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. They're both brilliantly written books about creativity. I return to Big Magic almost yearly, and I wouldn't be surprised if I started to do the same with the creative act. While this book is deeply practical and has plenty of advice that anybody, especially creatives, can learn from, what I loved most about the book is how Rubin frames creative expression. He writes about how the ever-expanding universe is a never-ending and unknowably beautiful work of creativity. We are beings who are a part of this creative reality. When we interact with creative work, we are enlivening this world of creativity. This meeting of the existential and the practical is what sets the creative act apart from any other book I have read. Sometimes I find reading a book published as long ago as this one is intimidating. However, upon starting this book, I was immediately surprised by how easy the story was to engage with. This book covers the first 27 years of Douglas's life, starting with his being born into slavery. Douglas delivers an unflinching and damning account of the unspeakable inhumanity he experienced throughout his life. His story tells how he resolved to become literate behind the backs of his oppressors, and eventually was able to spread that literacy among other enslaved people. While this is not a light read or one without disturbing accounts, it is only through a deep understanding of the wrongs of our past that the repeating of these wrongs is avoided. Even if this was not the case, the book is worth reading for its elegant storytelling and Douglas's wisdom and insight. Attack on Titan is a wild show, twisting and turning its plot, spinning a wider and wider web that is the show's complex world. It's been fun catching up on the last season, which I'm not finished with. I will say that I am not nearly as connected to the characters as I am to the characters of some of my other favorite anime shows. There are a few characters that I'm very connected to, like the main trio and Captain Levi. However, because the show does not hold back in killing off many of the supporting characters, you learn not to get too attached. One thing that sets Attack on Titan apart is the emphasis on strategy surrounding its action scenes. It's clear that the thought that goes into the writing of the show and the manga is extensive. I believe the show is thematically about different types of power and power over time. These powerful beings are locked into conflicts which many do not want to be involved with, and didn't have any part in starting. I think many parallels can be drawn from the way power is depicted in this show to how power is handled in real life. I'm far from being caught up on the show, but I'm glad that the finale isn't coming out until November, and I hope I can get caught up before then. An album I've been returning to this month is JPEG Mafia's LP. My brother introduced me to JPEG a few years back, and his music has made a huge impact on me. This album won't be for everybody. JPEG Mafia is known for his atypical production, and it's on full display in this record. However, his flow is impeccable, and the amount of control he shows, not only as a rapper, but also as the producer making each piece's beat, enhances the emotion of each song. On top of all this, JPEG's singing voice sets him further apart from other rappers, and he shows it off on tracks like Thoughts Prayer and Kissy Face Emoji. What keeps me coming back to JPEG Mafia, other than his track titles, is his unpredictability. When you turn on one of his albums, all you can count on is being surprised. Some of my favorite songs on the album are Trust, Dirty, the aforementioned Thoughts Prayer, OG, Sick, Nervous, and Broke, and Bald. I've been listening to new and old episodes of We Can Do Hard Things, Glennon Doyle's podcast she does with her wife, the retired Hall of Fame soccer player Abby Wambach, and her sister Amanda Doyle. My mom introduced me to Glennon's work by recommending I read her fantastic book, Untamed, and check out the podcast. We Can Do Hard Things is one of those rare podcasts that is just as exciting to listen to whether or not the hosting trio has a guest. I blew through many episodes this month, and I'll recommend some of my favorites. First is the 3 episodes spanning from episode 188 to 190, covering Abby's history with an emphasis on love, why she so strongly desires and needs love, and the many ups and downs she has been through in search of it. I also loved episode 230 about the great advice that Glennon, Abby, and Amanda have received throughout their life. Episode 240 on psychedelics was a great introduction to the subject. Dr. Hillary McBride answered the host's questions about how and why people turn to psychedelics to aid their mental health. Lastly, I will mention episode 243, where Oprah came on the podcast and shared wisdom on many topics. I enjoy the podcast because of the unflinching candor offered by each of the 3 women and their guests, and their willingness to talk openly about their struggles and how they overcame them. So that's some of the media I've been consuming this month. If you'd like to share with me some stuff you've enjoyed this month, then you can put it in the comments, and I'd love to read it. Thank you for watching.